All right. So I wanted to get in one more partial chapter on Maimonides on Teshuvah. We're going to chapter 2.2. And this is actually for day 5 of the reading. I had a little commentary on the deathbed confessions, etc. But I think that the text that we read last week pretty much covered that. You know, I think God knows if we're sincere, and if we would continue to do those things. So I don't think I really need to go into that anymore. All right, 2.2. What is Teshuvah? Teshuvah is when a person abandons sin, banishes it from thought, and resolves in his heart never to commit this act again. As it is written, Isaiah 55:7, the wicked will abandon his ways, and the sinner his thoughts. He will also regret his past, as is written in Jeremiah 31:18, for after I did Teshuvah, I felt regret, and after I gained knowledge, I slapped my thigh. The one who knows all secrets will testify that he will not ever return to this sin, as it is written in Hosea 14:4, and we will no longer call the work of our hands our God. The sinner must articulate the resolutions of his heart with an oral confession. Commentary. We have previously reflected on the strange sequence of Maimonides' presentation. Why is halakha, which appears to be the natural beginning of the book, delayed until the second chapter? Rabbi Soloveitchik, in his characteristically analytic style, argued that there are two aspects to the commandment of Teshuvah, paralleling the distinction between kapara and tahara. On the one hand, there's an element of action, a physical, concrete translation of the divine command into human behavior. The action of Teshuvah is confession, with the physical act of audibly verbalizing the acknowledgement of sin. One actually performs the mitzvah of Teshuvah. Rabbi Soloveitchik argues that Maimonides did not present his material theoretically, he presented it practically. The ways of repentance begin with confession, the how of Teshuvah, and then, only then, moved to the what of Teshuvah. Or perhaps the second element was not the what of Teshuvah, but rather the who of Teshuvah. Who is this person now that he or she has repented? The Rav continues to explain that beyond the actions of Teshuvah, there is the fulfillment of the commandment is separated in time and space from the initial action. For example, I recall a specific moment when I lost my temper in a meeting with colleagues. It didn't take long for me to recognize the impropriety of my outburst, and I both apologized to my fellow academics as well as performed my own personal confession and prayer. That is in the book, by the way. Not that that's never happened to me, but I just want to make sure you understand I am reading the book at this point in time. Thus, I completed the action component of Teshuvah, which was certainly the easier task. The fulfillment component, on the other hand, is an entirely different matter. Have I become a complete master of Teshuvah, described at the beginning of this chapter, resistant to all future temptations? Hardly. That aspect of Teshuvah requires sustained inner work. Maimonides, thankfully, will guide us through the process. So the book continues with several different chapters. We're currently on forgiveness. Chapter 3 is change. Chapter 4, impediments. Chapter 5, freedom. Chapter 6, privilege. Chapter 7, Teshuvah. Chapter 8, future. Chapter 9, present. Chapter 10, love. The following, my father, a tribute, and then the acknowledgments. I found the book really, really good, and I think it gives us some good basic information and helps spur us on to true Teshuvah. Unlike our Christian brothers and sisters, we believe that true repentance requires sorrow. It requires confession. It requires making a plan not to commit the same sin again, and if placed in that position, not doing that sin. And it requires restitution when possible. You know, the Bible talks about stealing and then having to repay 5 times as much. And so anytime restitution is possible, that is certainly the ideal. And if restitution is not possible, Judaism turns to acts of loving kindness towards others as a substitute solely because it's not possible. Unfortunately, our Christian brothers and sisters see this as a work, and of course all of salvation, in quotation marks, is a faith-based, not a work-based situation. So unfortunately they cannot accept that restitution is part of the process, even though it's biblical. So I hope that helped. On Sunday we will continue on our forage through the Siddur, and then we will take a break for a little bit as we all get ready for the high holidays. Hope you have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in with me.